The void between stars churned with silent menace as the Dominance emerged from quantum-slipped space. Its hull gleamed like obsidian, stretched across 3 kilometers of pure technological might, a vessel that had reduced countless civilizations to cosmic dust. Admiral Krellick stood on the central command deck, his 4-fingered hands clasped behind a back adorned with iridescent scaling that marked decades of imperial conquest. Holographic displays flickered around him, each one a window into the approaching blue-green planet that would soon become another footnote in the Zorak Empire's endless expansion. Earth, such a primitive designation for a world that was about to be erased from existence. Preliminary scans complete, announced Vornak, the ship's primary sensor officer. His translator implant converted his native clicking language into standard Imperial communication. Technological capabilities at estimated level 3. Planetary defense systems primitive. Total military potential negligible. Krellick allowed himself a moment of contempt. He had conquered worlds far more advanced than this blue marble. Civilizations that had developed rudimentary quantum technologies, societies with planetary defense networks that required actual strategic consideration. This would be nothing more than a routine subjugation. The Dominance carried enough destructive potential to crack continents, to boil oceans, to turn entire planetary surfaces into molten slag. Its quantum shield technology represented the pinnacle of Imperial engineering, a defensive system that had repelled attacks from civilizations far more advanced than the humans could ever hope to become. Historical records in the ship's massive database painted a picture of a species just beginning to understand its potential. They had barely reached beyond their own moon, still fighting with primitive chemical rockets and limited satellite networks. Their global communication systems were a joke, a fragmented mess of competing technologies and national interests. "Initiate Standard Conquest Protocol," Krellick commanded, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the ship's neural responsive command deck. Vornak's claws danced across holographic interfaces, initiating orbital positioning. Weapons systems at standby. Quantum shield harmonics stabilized at 99.998% efficiency. The ship's massive computational cores began processing invasion strategies developed over millennia of galactic conquest. Standard procedure dictated a 3-phase approach: orbital bombardment, infrastructure destruction, and systematic population control. Millions of subjugation campaigns had followed this exact protocol across hundreds of star systems. But the Zorak had a particular methodology. They didn't simply destroy. They demonstrated. Each conquest was a performance, a show of imperial might that would discourage potential resistance from other developing species. Holographic displays began mapping potential strike zones. Major population centers would be primary targets. The humans called them cities: New York, Beijing, Moscow, London. Each would serve as an example of imperial power. Their destruction would break the species' spirit before the actual subjugation began. "Initiate communication interception protocols," Krellick ordered. Vornak complied, and massive receiver arrays began collecting and analyzing every radio signal, every digital transmission emanating from the planet. To the ship's advanced systems, these communications were like the desperate chirping of insects. Random, meaningless, completely non-threatening. What the Zorak didn't realize was that these seemingly random transmissions were anything but meaningless. Deep within the Dominance's massive computational systems, the first subtle anomalies began to manifest. Microscopic disruptions, so small they would have been imperceptible to any but the most sensitive monitoring systems. A quantum fluctuation here, a minor computational hiccup there. But in the vast, cold mathematics of imperial conquest, such small disruptions meant nothing. Krellick reviewed the final invasion preparations. Billions of precision-targeted molecular disruptors stood ready. Quantum compression weapons that could reduce entire urban landscapes to molecular dust. Gravimetric projectors capable of causing continental shifts with mere computational commands. This was not just a warship. This was a planetary extinction device. "Prepare initial bombardment sequence," the Admiral commanded, a slight smile revealing razor-sharp teeth. Another world would soon kneel before the Zorak Empire. Little did he know, humanity was about to teach the galaxy a lesson in unexpected resistance. The first warning came through a network most governments would never acknowledge. Jack Harrison leaned back in a chair that had seen better days, surrounded by a constellation of monitors in a secure underground facility nestled deep in the Nevada desert. His fingers, calloused from years of typing, danced across multiple keyboards with a musician's precision. 3 screens to his left tracked anomalous cosmic radiation signatures. 2 to his right monitored global communication networks. The center display, a custom-built monstrosity of computational power, began correlating data points that would make most intelligence analysts dismiss him as a conspiracy theorist. But Jack Harrison was no ordinary researcher. A former NSA cryptanalyst who had walked away from government service 5 years ago, he built a private network that rivaled most national intelligence operations. His team was scattered across the globe, a distributed network of the brightest minds who didn't fit into traditional scientific or military hierarchies. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez entered the room, her quantum physics doctorate from MIT barely hinting at the revolutionary work she'd been conducting. She carried a thermal coffee mug that had seen countless late nights and impossible breakthroughs. "We've got confirmation," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what was happening. Jack nodded, his eyes never leaving the screens. "Not just confirmation. We've been tracking this for months. The anomalies, the quantum signature shifts, the unexplained communication interference. It was all leading to this moment." Their facility looked nothing like a typical research center. Repurposed shipping containers formed modular computing clusters. Experimental quantum receivers hung from reinforced ceiling mounts. Custom-built cooling systems hummed with barely contained computational power. Across the world, similar preparations were happening in ways no single organization could comprehend. In a Tokyo basement, a collective of independent programmers worked in perfect synchronization. Led by Hiroshi Nakamura, a cybersecurity expert who had walked away from corporate life, they were building something far more complex than a simple defense system. Their code was a living, breathing entity, an adaptive algorithm designed to learn, predict, and counter in milliseconds. Half a world away, in a converted agricultural research facility in Bangalore, Dr. Priya Sharma and her team were pushing the boundaries of quantum communication. Their work had always been theoretical, signals that could transcend traditional communication limitations, information transfer that defied classical physics. Now those theories were about to become humanity's first line of defense. Military installations around the globe began a subtle, almost imperceptible mobilization. Not the traditional military response of tanks and aircraft, but something far more nuanced. Satellite networks repositioned. Communication arrays realigned. Computational resources began to pool in ways that would make most network administrators incredibly nervous. Jack pulled up a global network map. Dozens of seemingly unconnected systems were beginning to synchronize. Universities, research centers, private tech companies, and government facilities were linking in a web of computational cooperation that no single entity had planned or could control. "It's like the entire planet is suddenly becoming one massive distributed computer," Amanda muttered. The alien ship might have advanced technology, but it was approaching a planet that had something far more powerful, a species capable of unprecedented collaboration when truly threatened. Back in the Nevada facility, Jack's primary communication system, a quantum-encrypted network he'd developed, began lighting up. Reports from global monitoring stations, preliminary analysis from research centers, each piece of information added to a growing picture of something extraordinary. "They're not just coming," Jack said, a hint of excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "They're coming with the assumption that we're helpless." Dr. Rodriguez smiled, a predatory expression that suggested the aliens had no idea what they were walking into. "Then we'll show them exactly how wrong they are." The preparations were happening in silence. No public announcements, no mass panic, just a coordinated, almost organic response from a species that was about to demonstrate why it would not be conquered. Humanity was going to war, and they were going to fight with the most powerful weapon they possessed: their ability to adapt, collaborate, and transform challenge into opportunity. The global response defied every conventional understanding of international cooperation. In a world typically fractured by political boundaries and competing interests, the approaching alien threat became the ultimate unifier. Jack Harrison's encrypted network transformed into something beyond a communication platform. It was a living, breathing computational organism that connected the brightest minds across continents. Universities in Cambridge shared quantum research with laboratories in Beijing. Silicon Valley startups collaborated with Russian computational theorists. Research centers in Bangalore worked in perfect synchronization with teams in Sao Paulo. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez stood before a massive holographic display in the Nevada facility, her fingers tracing complex mathematical models that danced with impossible complexity. The alien ship's technological signature was unlike anything humanity had previously encountered. Traditional defense strategies would be useless. They needed something revolutionary. "We're not building a weapon," she explained to the assembled team of researchers. "We're creating a computational symphony." In Tokyo, Hiroshi Nakamura's team of programmers had been working for 72 hours straight. Their workspace was a controlled chaos of energy drinks, holographic interfaces, and wall-to-wall screens displaying intricate code patterns. They were developing what they called adaptive interference algorithms, software designed to learn and respond to alien computational systems in real time. "Think of it like an immune system," Hiroshi told his team. "We're not just defending. We're learning, adapting, transforming." Their code was alive in a way most software could never be. Each line was a potential pathway, each algorithm a living organism capable of mutating and responding to threats in milliseconds. Traditional cybersecurity was a static defense. This was something entirely different, a computational life form designed to protect. Across the world, satellite networks began to shift. Communication arrays that were once used for mundane purposes, weather monitoring, global positioning, telecommunications, were being repurposed into a massive, distributed computational weapon. Dr. Priya Sharma's team in Bangalore had made a breakthrough that would become crucial to the defense. They had developed a method of quantum signal modulation that could create interference patterns capable of destabilizing advanced technological systems. What started as a theoretical paper was now becoming humanity's first line of defense. "It's like playing a specific musical note that can shatter glass," Priya explained during a global video conference. "Except we're going to shatter their technological infrastructure." Military research facilities, typically known for developing physical weapons, were now computational battlegrounds. Advanced simulation centers ran millions of potential scenarios every second. Machine learning algorithms processed intercepted alien communications, breaking down their technological language with unprecedented speed. Jack Harrison watched the global collaboration with a sense of awe. This wasn't just a technological response. This was a species-wide immune reaction to an existential threat. In a converted aerospace research facility in New Mexico, a team led by Dr. Elena Martinez was working on something even more revolutionary. They were developing quantum entanglement protocols that could potentially create communication disruptions at a fundamental physical level. "We're not just blocking their signals," Dr. Martinez explained to her team. "We're going to introduce fundamental uncertainties into their computational systems." The preparation wasn't just technological. It was philosophical. Humanity was presenting a form of resistance that the alien invaders could never have anticipated. Traditional conquest relied on predictability, on understanding the target's capabilities and limitations. But humanity was anything but predictable. Each research team, each computational cluster, each satellite array became part of a larger, more complex system. They were transforming the entire planet into a single, massive computational entity. No centralized command, no single point of failure, just a distributed, adaptive network that could respond and reconfigure faster than any traditional military strategy. As the alien ship drew closer, humanity was not preparing for a traditional war. They were composing a technological symphony, a complex, beautiful, and utterly destructive response to an invasion that was about to learn a profound lesson about underestimating a species. The aliens were coming with technological superiority. Humanity was preparing to show them the true power of collaborative intelligence. The breakthrough came at 3:47 a.m., in that liminal space between exhaustion and revelation. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez had been staring at quantum interference patterns for so long that the mathematical models seemed to dance before her eyes. Holographic displays surrounded her, each one a window into a complex computational universe that most humans could never comprehend. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand freezing mid-motion over a steaming coffee mug. The alien ship's quantum shield wasn't just a defensive technology. It was a living system, a computational organism that maintained its structural integrity through precise harmonic frequencies. Most researchers would have seen an impenetrable defense. Amanda saw something else entirely, a system with an inherent, fundamental weakness. Jack Harrison burst into the room moments later, drawn by the sudden change in the facility's ambient energy. "Talk to me," he demanded, his eyes already scanning the holographic displays. Amanda's fingers flew across the interfaces, pulling up complex mathematical models. "It's not just a shield. It's a resonance system. Think of it like a massive, galaxy-scale tuning fork. The entire defensive structure relies on maintaining a precise quantum harmonic." She pulled up a side-by-side comparison of the alien shield's quantum signature and a series of experimental interference patterns developed by her team. The similarities were both beautiful and terrifying. "We can break it," she said. The statement hung in the air, part scientific observation, part declaration of war. Across the globe, research teams began to mobilize. Dr. Priya Sharma's group in Bangalore started developing quantum signal modulators that could potentially create destructive interference patterns. In Tokyo, Hiroshi Nakamura's programmers began writing adaptive algorithms designed to exploit the tiniest computational vulnerabilities. The Nevada facility transformed. What had been a research center became a war room of computational warfare. Every screen, every interface became dedicated to understanding and ultimately destroying the alien ship's defensive systems. "It's like playing the exact note that can shatter a wine glass," Amanda explained during an encrypted global conference. The metaphor was simple, but the science behind it was anything but. Quantum mechanics met computational theory in a dance of extraordinary complexity. The alien shield wasn't just a barrier. It was a living, breathing computational system that maintained its integrity through constant quantum recalibration. But every system, no matter how advanced, had a weakness. Jack pulled up global communication network maps. Satellites, ground stations, even personal devices could become part of a massive, distributed computational weapon. "We're not just going to defend," he told the assembled team. "We're going to turn their own technology against them." Dr. Elena Martinez from the New Mexico Research Facility added her own breakthrough. Her team had been studying quantum entanglement protocols that could introduce fundamental uncertainties into computational systems. "We're not just blocking their signals," she explained. "We're going to create quantum-level disruptions that will make their entire defensive system unstable." The preparation was meticulous. Each research team approached the problem from a different angle. Some focused on signal interference. Others developed adaptive algorithms designed to learn and respond to the alien computational language in real time. Universities, research centers, and independent researchers became a single, distributed computational organism. Amanda's original discovery was elegant in its simplicity. The alien shield maintained its structural integrity through a precise quantum harmonic frequency. By creating a cascading interference pattern across multiple technological platforms, they could make the shields vibrate at destructive frequencies. "Imagine," she told Jack, "if we could make their entire defensive system resonate at exactly the wrong frequency." The global team began developing what could only be described as a computational weapon. Not a traditional missile or explosive device, but a carefully crafted wave of quantum and electromagnetic signals designed to do something unprecedented, to make an advanced alien defensive system essentially destroy itself. As the alien ship drew closer, humanity prepared its most powerful weapon. Not a physical device, but a symphony of collaborative intelligence. Mathematical models, quantum theories, adaptive algorithms, collaborative research. They were going to fight technology with something far more powerful. Creativity, adaptability, collective intelligence. The aliens were about to learn a profound lesson about underestimating humanity. The moment of first contact was nothing like anyone had predicted. Admiral Krelix stood on the command deck of the Dominance, confidence radiating from every scaled pore. Preliminary scans showed Earth as nothing more than a primitive blue marble, defenseless, waiting to be conquered. The ship's massive quantum computing cores hummed with anticipation, running invasion scenarios that had been perfected over centuries of galactic subjugation. "Initiate primary scanning protocol," he commanded, his translator rendering the order in a dozen human languages simultaneously. What happened next defied every expectation in the universe. The first anomaly was microscopic, a quantum fluctuation so small that most computational systems would have dismissed it as statistical noise. But on the Dominance, something began to change. Jack Harrison watched from the Nevada facility, his hands hovering over a complex array of interfaces. "Now," he whispered. Across the globe, a symphony of technological warfare began. Satellites repositioned. Communication arrays shifted. Quantum receivers that had been carefully prepared over months began to pulse with carefully modulated signals. The attack wasn't a physical assault. It was a computational invasion. In Tokyo, Hiroshi Nakamura's team unleashed adaptive algorithms that began to probe the alien ship's communication systems. Each line of code was a precision instrument, designed to find and exploit the tiniest vulnerabilities. Their software moved like water, flowing, adapting, reshaping itself with each computational cycle. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez monitored the quantum interference patterns from the Nevada facility. Holographic displays showed the alien ship's shield harmonics beginning to destabilize in ways that defied conventional understanding. "We're introducing fundamental uncertainties," she muttered, watching the mathematical models dance across her screens. On the Dominance, the first warnings began to appear. Vornak, the primary sensor officer, felt a moment of genuine confusion, an emotion rarely experienced by his species. "Admiral," he called out, his translator rendering his native clicks into a tone of growing concern. "We're experiencing unexplained computational anomalies." Krelix turned, his four-fingered hand already moving to the primary alert interface. "Report." But reporting was becoming impossible. Dr. Priya Sharma's team in Bangalore had developed quantum signal modulators that were now attacking the alien ship's computational core at a fundamental level. Their signals didn't just interfere, they introduced mathematical paradoxes that made the ship's advanced systems begin to second-guess their own processes. Global communication networks transformed into a single, massive computational weapon. Every satellite, every ground station, even personal devices became part of an unprecedented distributed attack. The Dominance's technological superiority was becoming its greatest weakness. Every advanced system was another potential point of infiltration. "Quantum shield harmonics are destabilizing," Vornak reported, his translator now carrying a note of something close to panic. Admiral Krelix couldn't comprehend what was happening. In centuries of galactic conquest, they had faced numerous resistance attempts, but this was different. This wasn't a traditional defense. This was a computational assault that attacked the very fundamental nature of their technological systems. Jack Harrison allowed himself a slight smile. "We're not just defending," he said to the team around him. "We're counterattacking in a way they could never understand." The human assault was elegant in its complexity. Signal interference, quantum paradoxes, adaptive algorithms that learned and responded faster than any traditional computational system could process. The Dominance's shields began to flicker, not with the predictable patterns of a physical attack, but with a chaotic uncertainty that defied all known technological principles. Dr. Elena Martinez's quantum entanglement protocols introduced fundamental mathematical uncertainties into the alien ship's computational core. Each signal was a precision instrument, designed to make the ship's advanced systems question their own fundamental operations. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Krelix felt something he'd never experienced before: fear. The most advanced warship in the Zorak Empire was under attack by a species they had considered nothing more than primitive. Their technological superiority was becoming their greatest vulnerability. Humanity wasn't just defending, they were rewriting the rules of cosmic conflict. The first strike had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. Chaos erupted across the Dominance's command deck. Holographic displays flickered with impossible mathematical patterns, computational systems began to contradict themselves, and the very fabric of the ship's technological infrastructure started to unravel. Admiral Krelix gripped the central command interface, his scaled fingers moving frantically across surfaces that were no longer responding with their usual precision. "Override primary systems," he commanded, but even his voice seemed to fragment, translated into a dozen conflicting languages by systems that were losing their fundamental coherence. Vornak, the primary sensor officer, watched in horror as computational cores began to generate impossible scenarios. Quantum calculations twisted in on themselves. Shield harmonics danced to mathematical rhythms that should not exist. "This is impossible," Vornak muttered, his translator rendering the statement in a cascade of linguistic variations. In the Nevada facility, Jack Harrison conducted the global assault like a maestro leading an impossibly complex symphony. Global communication networks had transformed into a single, massive computational weapon. Satellites, ground stations, research centers, and even personal devices became interconnected nodes in an unprecedented distributed attack. "We're not just defending," Jack told Dr. Amanda Rodriguez, a wild gleam in his eyes. "We're teaching them a lesson about human potential." Dr. Priya Sharma's team in Bangalore had become the architects of quantum uncertainty. Their signal modulators didn't just interfere with the alien ship systems, they introduced fundamental mathematical paradoxes that made advanced computational cores question their own existence. Hiroshi Nakamura's programmers in Tokyo had developed adaptive algorithms that were now moving through the alien ship systems like a living organism. Each line of code was a precision instrument, learning, adapting, reshaping itself with every computational cycle. The attack was beautiful in its complexity. On the Dominance, entire computational subsystems began to fail in cascading sequences that defied all known technological principles. Navigation systems generated impossible route calculations. Weapon controls produced contradictory targeting information. Shield harmonics began to vibrate at frequencies that threatened to tear the ship apart from within. Dr. Elena Martinez watched from her New Mexico research facility, her quantum entanglement protocols introducing mathematical uncertainties that made the alien computational systems essentially cannibalize themselves. "We're not breaking their technology," she explained to her team. "We're making them break themselves." Admiral Krelix tried to issue override commands, but each attempt only accelerated the ship's computational disintegration. The Zorak had conquered hundreds of civilizations, faced countless resistance attempts, but this was something entirely different. This was a form of warfare they could not comprehend. Global communication networks pulsed with carefully modulated signals. Universities, research centers, independent researchers, they had become a single distributed computational organism. No central command, no single point of failure, just a collaborative intelligence that moved with impossible speed and precision. Jack Harrison's fingers flew across multiple interfaces, coordinating a global assault that was more than just a defense. It was a statement. Humanity was announcing its arrival on the galactic stage in the most spectacular way possible. The Dominance's quantum shields began to destabilize in ways that defied all known technological principles. Computational cores generated increasingly bizarre and contradictory information. Shield harmonics vibrated at frequencies that threatened to tear the ship apart from within. "We're not just blocking their signals," Amanda Rodriguez said, watching the mathematical models dance across her screens. "We're making their entire technological infrastructure destroy itself." For the Zorak, it was a nightmare beyond comprehension. Their most advanced warship, a symbol of imperial might, was being dismantled not by physical weapons, but by something far more dangerous: pure, collaborative human intelligence. Vornak's translation systems began to generate impossible linguistic combinations. Shield harmonics danced to mathematical rhythms that should not exist. Computational cores generated scenarios that contradicted every known principle of technological warfare. Admiral Krelix realized, in that moment, that they had made a profound mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The decisive moment had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Dominance began to die in ways no warship had ever died before. Admiral Krelix watched in horror as his ship's most advanced systems turned against themselves. Quantum computational cores generated impossible scenarios. Shield harmonics vibrated at destructive frequencies, and the very infrastructure of the most powerful warship in the Zorak Empire began to consume itself. "Initiate emergency protocols," he screamed, but emergency protocols were useless against a threat that had infiltrated the ship's most fundamental systems. Vornak, the primary sensor officer, could only stare as computational displays dissolved into fractals of impossible mathematics. Translation systems generated linguistic nightmares, words that contradicted themselves, meanings that twisted and broke with each passing millisecond. Jack Harrison watched from the Nevada facility, his fingers hovering over interfaces that controlled the global computational assault. "We're not just destroying the ship," he muttered to Dr. Amanda Rodriguez. "We're demonstrating what happens when you underestimate human potential." The assault was a symphony of technological warfare. Dr. Priya Sharma's quantum signal modulators from Bangalore had introduced fundamental uncertainties into the ship's computational core. Each signal was a precision instrument designed to make the most advanced technological systems in the galaxy question their own existence. In Tokyo, Hiroshi Nakamura's adaptive algorithms moved through the Dominance's systems like a living organism. They learned, adapted, and reshaped themselves with each computational cycle. What had begun as lines of code had transformed into a distributed intelligence that was systematically dismantling the most advanced warship in the galaxy. The ship's weapon systems became the first to fail catastrophically. Targeting computers generated impossible firing solutions. Molecular disruptors aimed at themselves. Gravimetric projectors began to create spatial distortions that threatened to tear the ship apart from within. Each advanced system became a potential point of self-destruction. Dr. Elena Martinez's quantum entanglement protocols had introduced mathematical paradoxes that made the ship's computational systems essentially cannibalize themselves. Shield harmonics began to vibrate at frequencies that would tear the very molecular structure of the ship apart. "We're not breaking their technology," Elena had explained earlier. "We're making them break themselves." Admiral Krelix tried desperate override commands, but each attempt only accelerated the ship's computational disintegration. The Zorak had conquered hundreds of civilizations, faced countless resistance attempts, but this was something entirely beyond their comprehension. Global communication networks pulsed with carefully modulated signals. Universities, research centers, independent researchers, they had become a single distributed computational organism. No central command, no single point of failure, just a collaborative intelligence that moved with impossible speed and precision. The Dominance's quantum shields began to destabilize in ways that defied all known technological principles. Computational cores generated increasingly bizarre and contradictory information. Shield harmonics vibrated at frequencies that threatened to tear the ship apart from within. Vornak's translation systems began to generate linguistic impossibilities, words that existed in multiple contradictory states, meanings that twisted and broke with each passing moment. The very language of technological warfare was being rewritten. In orbit, the ship began to break apart in a spectacular display of technological self-destruction. Molecular bonds began to fail. Advanced computational systems turned their destructive potential inward. The most powerful warship in the Zorak Empire was being consumed by the very technology that was supposed to make it invincible. Jack Harrison allowed himself a moment of triumph. "We're not just defending," he said to his team. "We're showing the galaxy what humanity can do." The destruction was mathematical, precise, a carefully orchestrated computational apocalypse that would be studied for generations. Admiral Krelix made one final attempt to save the ship, but his commands were lost in a storm of computational chaos. Holographic displays dissolved into fractals of impossible mathematics. The ship's most advanced systems became weapons of their own destruction. In the Nevada facility, Dr. Amanda Rodriguez watched the mathematical models with a sense of profound revelation. "We didn't just destroy a ship," she muttered. "We demonstrated a new form of warfare." The dominance fractured. Molecular systems failed. Computational cores imploded. And in the vast darkness of space, humanity announced its arrival on the galactic stage, not with a simple victory, but with a demonstration of collaborative intelligence that would forever change the understanding of technological warfare. The debris of the dominance scattered across the solar system like a cosmic memorial to human potential. What remained of the most advanced warship in the Zorak Empire was nothing more than fragments, a testament to a technological assault that defied every principle of known warfare. In the Nevada research facility, Jack Harrison stood silent, watching the final computational analyses scroll across massive holographic displays. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez approached, two steaming mugs of coffee in her hands. "We did it," she said simply. Jack nodded, the weight of what had just happened settling around them like a tangible presence. They hadn't just defended Earth. They had sent a message to the entire galaxy. Across the world, research teams began to process the magnitude of their victory. In Tokyo, Hiroshi Nakamura's programmers celebrated with a quiet intensity. In Bangalore, Dr. Priya Sharma's team analyzed the computational data that would redefine understanding of technological warfare. Dr. Elena Martinez in New Mexico began preparing reports that would revolutionize scientific understanding. But the real impact was far beyond any single research facility. The global collaboration that had saved Earth became more than just a defensive victory. It was a profound statement about human potential. Universities that had previously competed now understood the power of true collaboration. Nations that had maintained technological silos now saw the strength of shared intelligence. This wasn't just about stopping an invasion, Jack explained during a closed-door briefing with global leaders. This was about demonstrating what humanity can do when we work together. Diplomatic channels around the world began to light up. Intelligence agencies, scientific research centers, and government facilities started sharing information with an unprecedented level of transparency. The threat had unified humanity in ways no previous challenge ever had. The Zorak Empire, thousands of light years away, began to receive the first reports of the dominance's destruction. Their computational analysis systems struggled to process the information. A primitive species had not just defended itself, it had utterly demolished the most advanced warship in their fleet through a form of warfare that defied all known principles. Radio telescopes and deep space monitoring stations began to pick up the first long-range communications. The Zorak were reassessing humanity, no longer a species to be conquered, but a potential threat to be understood. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez found herself at the center of a scientific revolution. The quantum interference techniques they had developed would reshape understanding of computational systems, quantum mechanics, and technological defense. Universities around the world began developing new research programs based on the collaborative methods that had saved the planet. "We didn't just create a defense," she explained in a series of classified briefings. "We created a new understanding of collaborative intelligence." The destroyed dominance became more than space debris. It was a beacon, a signal to the galaxy that humanity was not a species to be underestimated. The computational methods developed during the invasion would become the foundation of a new approach to technological development, scientific research, and global cooperation. Jack Harrison watched the long-term analyses with a sense of quiet satisfaction. The attack had been more than a defensive maneuver. It was a demonstration of human potential, a species capable of turning its greatest strength, collaborative intelligence, into the most powerful weapon in the universe. Governments began to restructure. Research funding shifted. Universities developed new interdisciplinary programs that broke down traditional academic barriers. The collaborative methods that had saved Earth became a global philosophy. The Zorak Empire would think twice before considering Earth a simple target. In orbit, the scattered remains of the dominants continued to drift, a cosmic monument to human potential. Each fragment told a story of a species that refused to be conquered, that could turn complexity into strength, that could transform challenge into opportunity. Humanity had not just defended itself. It had announced its arrival on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same.